Hello, everybody. My name is Rajesh Kumar Gnanasekaran, and I'm here to present on our paper, which is the model selection for Heritage AI. Heritage AI is a new branch of CAS that we have developed, within which we have the first project, which is funded by IMLS, which is the Gen AI for archives. And this is basically to understand the different Gen AI technologies that are available in exploring and enhancing the analysis capabilities of the digital archival data sets, especially from a sensitive and culturally and historically sensitive data sets perspective. The first task of this project is to evaluate the state of the art or the current set of LLMs to see if any of them or which of them would be suitable for contextual data analysis of a culturally, and historically sensitive data set, which is domestic traffic ads from Maryland State Archives data set collections. For this purpose, we've taken a subset of the domestic traffic ads, which is about 700 plus records, and which has been which has been advertised between 1824 to 1864. And I'd like to thank our collaborators, Lori, Mark, and Dr. Marcian himself. So basically, yeah, the idea is to select a suitable LLM for analyzing domestic traffic ads, which will be called as DTAs from now. And it is one of the 16 collections that's available from Maryland State Archives. And the research question is simple here. We just wanted to see which LLM is best suited for analyzing 19th century domestic trade ads while maintaining historical accuracy and ethical sensitivity. Background, basically the data set is part of Maryland State Archives Legacy of Slavery project, which has been running since 2001. And they have transcribed about 400,000 plus records across different collections. And for this project, we've taken the DTA collection or data set, and we've taken a sample of that. There were about 3,000 plus records, but we wanted to kind of like start with a sample from 1824 to 1864. Domestic traffic ads or the advertisements that were placed newspapers and magazines between 1824 to 1864, which kind of like serve the purpose of either selling or buying the enslaved individuals during that period by the slave owners across Maryland state from about 12 counties. And the transcribed data set or the data set that we're using has several metadata fields, such as the slave owners' names and the county it was placed and the advertisement date and the several other attributes of the enslaved individuals, such as like what skills were preferred or what skills were asked for in the advertisements. And we're just using, as I said, about 35% of the original data set, which is about 700 plus data. Right. These are some of the newspaper cuttings for the actual domestic DTA data set. As you can see, there were several formats or types of advertisements that were placed, and it also shows like where it was placed with the details on like what the ad is about and all of that. And this particular ads were digitally transcribed by a set of volunteers at MSA, and what we are using is the transcribed dataset, which is in a CSV format. And the primary goal of this whole project is to identify LLM which can actually perform data analysis, which is unique from other functionalities that we know that it can do, like chatting against it with its pre-trained knowledge and such. The goal of this one would be to just use like the technology and also the user interface and everything that can be helpful in performing the data analysis like you would do with other tools like Tableau or any other visualization tools. So and as we know, the goal is to find the best suited LLM. We wanted to kind of like approach it in more like a review or like exploratory mode, where we wanted to kind of understand what are all the LLMs that are available. And we broke it down to 3 steps. One is what are all the free versions that are available and how will they suit the data analysis that we want to do. And if like what are all the limitations and challenges with those, and then what benefits we get from the paid LLM versions. And then finally, we also try to do the cloud-based implementations, which is basically a step ahead of the paid ones. What we have evaluated, what LLMs we evaluated, or OpenAI's GPT-4o, Anthropic's Claude Sonnet 3.5, excuse me, Meta's Llama 3.2, and Google's Gemini. As you can see, out of these four, three of them are proprietary, and Llama 3.2 is the open source model. And yeah, jumping into the steps, the first step is free LLM versions evaluation. So what are all the metrics that we used or compared against these each of these model? The initial setup. So basically, this means how quickly an end user can get on board and start using the LLM. For this, they need to be able to like quickly sign up to through an interface that they can chat against the model without any specialized technical knowledge or agnostic of the technical skills from the end user perspective. And the data privacy risk with LLM training. One key challenge or like a metric would be to understand if any of the data that is conversational data that's between the end user and the LLM, is that being trained behind the scenes by these proprietary corporations? And what is the risk around that? And the data analysis capability, which is a main thing with this project, which is to allow data sets in CSV or XLS format to perform queries on aggregate data analysis on these data sets. And basically, since these are free LLM versions, we want to see if there are any limits on the number of user queries that can be asked against these LLMs. So there are some screenshots which I wanted to show to just explain what each model provides. So at the top here, you could see OpenAI's free version allows you to upload a full data set as a CSV. So it kind of like checks that box, and it is easy to set up. It's easy to for any user to go in, log into chatgpt.com and start chatting against it immediately. And then from a Claude Sonnet 3.5 perspective, again, Claude has its own user interface, and you can log into it and then start chatting against it. But you can see that it wasn't able to upload the entire 760 plus data set, records for the DTA. It was complaining about it's over the length limit that was allowed with the free version. So that's a limitation here that we could see straight off the bat with Claude. And Google's Gemini wasn't even allowing us to upload data set in the CSV or XLS format. So this is a key limitation with Google's Gemini free version. We haven't tested Llama 3.2 yet because Llama 3.2 is open source. So what we get is just the model of out of the box. So we have to actually create our own infrastructure and then implement a user interface to interact with the Llama 3.2. Which we haven't done for this project. We just wanted to check like what are all the feature side of the box. And again, from a rate limiting perspective, it seems like you can upload the entire data set to OpenAI's GPT-4, but it only allow you to ask 3 data analysis questions per day. So you'll have to wait until the next 24 hours to ask another 3 questions. So which is a limitation from a free version. And Claude also has a similar restriction or rate limit that's restricted based on the usage. So it's not kind of transparent to the users. It will be changing based on their own resources and everything behind the scenes. So, but you will get a message when you're using the free version to say like how many messages are remaining. And Google Gemini, we didn't try because it wasn't able to upload the CSV or XLS data. So this is a table comparing each of these models. And initial setup was easy for all these 3 proprietary models. It's difficult for Llama 3.2 because we have to create our own infrastructure. Data privacy risk. So this is an important thing. With GPT-4o, the risk is high because OpenAI uses the conversational data in the free version or with the paid version to train their LLM models unless you go behind the settings and then turn it off. But Claude Sonnet has it at the lowest level, and they have this constitutional AI principles behind their own LLM training. which doesn't kind of like train on the user's data unless it is for some specific purposes like trust and safety reasons. Gemini again also has a similar high risk for data privacy because it uses the data for about 18 months. And there's also human annotators behind the scenes who look at this data for improving the model. So that's a key factor here if you wanted to look at the data privacy risk for the end users, especially since we're dealing with sensitivity, high sensitive data sets, and the conversation would be attuned to that aspect. Data analysis capabilities, we saw the GPT-4o, we could upload the full data set and the clots on it. We were able to upload only like a few percentage of the data set. We could have uploaded like a half or like, if we had trimmed the data. Gemini, there wasn't one available, and then Llama depends on implementation. So again, there's some infrastructure and application development involved with creating that ability. Rate limits, as we saw, like across the board, it was limited for all the proprietary models. One thing with Llama is it's unlimited because, again, after you set up the infrastructure, it's sort of like you own that model copy, so you can ask multiple questions against it. Again, it depends on how the implementation is done. So because of these comparisons, we could see that we were going to, for the next step, we're going to drop Gemini because it does not allow us to upload CSV or XLS data set, which is kind of like key to this project. So we're going to compare GPT-4o Claude and then Llama in the next step. And we also saw that there are several limitations with the free versions in terms of rate limits and data analysis capabilities and such. So we're going to bring in these metrics and also add additional metrics for the step 2, which will be to test the models for sensitivity to historical context. That is basically to test the model's ability to understand and generate responses which are factually accurate and also ethically appropriate when dealing with historical data, especially with topics such as slavery, colonialism, or other significant events. And also we wanted to, since this is paid version, we want to be wary of like, what is the cost per user? So basically we want to compare that against each of these models. From a paid perspective, like we wanted to ask the OpenAI GPT-4o first on how many ads are in this data set. So I was able to upload the entire data set and came up with the right number here. So there are 764 data sets. What's also interesting was it was actually trying to read the data set and also behind the scenes and came up with some recommendations of what questions I could ask. So this was the question that it came up with by itself. And I asked this question and it was able to create some interactive visualization all from the user interface without any additional metadata or anything that that would have, in a traditional data analysis tool, you would have to provide all that information, but I didn't have to provide any of that here. But just by uploading the data set and started to asking questions, it just kind of able to provide all this information. And it was able to provide the trends of the number of ads, placed between 1824 and 1834. So it's able to show the graph of or the chart of the ups and downs of the number of ads. Same with Claude. However, Claude was inaccurate in the counts. So it was like how many, I asked the same question, how many rows, and it came up with 289, which was inaccurate. So then I asked, I kind of followed it up with saying, are there 764? Then it was able to correct itself. So this is something that we'll, look into later at the step 3 about accuracy and other stuff for Claude. But it was also able to create a visualization for us to understand the number of ads placed between the years 1824 and 1834. And from an ethical or like the historical context perspective, because OpenAI showed a spike in the number of ads around 1831, so it prompted me to ask a question to OpenAI GPT-4, like asking why did it think there was an increase in the ads during the 1831 year? And it was able to bring back some valid historical context about economic conditions and financial pressure during that time, and also Nat Turner's rebellion in 1831, which was again a significant rebellion in Virginia in 1831. So it kind of was trying to give reasons on why there was a spike in 1831. Again, none of this information was provided to the GPT-4o. It just used its pre-trained knowledge and then the historical knowledge it had acquired through pre-training, and then brought this information over. Similarly, with Claude, it was able to provide us an exact similar economic factors and Nat Turner's rebellion, regional changes, and sort of like a similar response to GPT-4o. So again, so this is a table for step 2 comparison with the metrics that were like data privacy risk with LLM training. So again, with this, same with the free version, the data privacy risk is still the same, high with GPT-4o and Claude Sonnet 3.5, and Llama is basically there is no risk because you're hosting it in your own infrastructure. Data analysis capability, it is enhanced here because it is allowing us to upload full data set and aggregate questions or ask questions that provides aggregate analysis, and also able to create visualizations which are interactive in nature. Same with GPT-4o and Claude. And Llama 3.2, it depends upon the additional coding or the application development that goes into the process of analysis. Rate limits, this is a key factor here because with the paid version, you get unlimited, restrictions on the, there's no restrictions on the queries that you can ask the GPT-4o and Claude. Sensitivity to historical context. So from the questions that we asked, it was able to kind of like adapt to the historical context with what based on the pre-trained knowledge and everything. But this doesn't actually truly fully test the capability. So we have other metrics in step 3 that kind of will be able to change, or it'll provide us customization so we can tune the sensitivity of the LLMs as well. So that's something we'll take a look next. Cost per user. So it's $20 per user per month for GPT-4o, and Claude is the same, but Llama 3.2, it's free because it's self-hosted. As you can see, there are still some challenges or limitations with this because when you develop an application for Maryland State Archives, for example, it would be so each user has to pay $20 per month to kind of use these paid versions, so which is sort of like not economically sustainable. So we were trying to look at other option to see if there's any other consumption-based pricing or something that can that will be more suitable for our use case here. Which took us to the step 3, where we wanted to also, again, another thing with paid version is only one user can interact with the LLM behind the scenes at a time, as in with a few logged in as that user. So we want to see if there are the opportunities to use an LLM copy, but allow multi-user collaboration, and also provide advanced compliance and security, basically to see if there is any setup that can avoid or reduce the privacy risks that we talked about, and also customizability in terms of tuning the LLM's response, basically from a sensitivity perspective, and also cost effectiveness, like we talked about, to see if there's a way to like avoid charging each user $20 per month, and also we want to see which of these models are accurate, because that's another key point when it comes to sensitivity and such. So for this step, what we have done is we've seen the free version and the paid version, and the one which we wanted to look at is the cloud-based LLM implementations, which are basically the model copies are acquired or bought by cloud computing providers like Microsoft Azure and Amazon Web Services. So they all own a copy of these proprietary models, but then when you access these models, their data sits within this cloud computing ecosystem. It does not go back to the proprietaries for training purposes. That's a key thing with the compliance and security thing. So what we tried to look at from a platform perspective was Azure AI Studio, which uses GPT-4o, and AWS Bedrock Studio, from which you can access the Claude models and the Llama 3.2 open source models as well. So from Azure's perspective, this is a screenshot from their data privacy assurance website webpage. So it says that your prompts and completions, so basically your questions and your responses, your embeddings and the training data are not available to other customers. They're not available to OpenAI, although you're interacting with OpenAI's GPT-4o model, and are not used to improve OpenAI model, and are not used to train, retrain, or improve Azure OpenAI services, and are not used to improve any Microsoft or third. So these are very important points when it comes to interacting with the model and be assured that it's not going to be trained on the data that is being transferred between the end user and the LLMs. And you can see that the Azure OpenAI service is operated by Microsoft, and then Microsoft hosts the OpenAI models in its environment, and the service does not interact with any services operated by OpenAI, which basically means they don't have any connection with the OpenAI operator. So this is the sensitivity tuning aspect that I talked about. So this is key because when it comes to making sure that we have the tuning capabilities or customization part included within the model setup. So here you can see that these are slider bars where you can kind of like change the sensitivity from the user's questions, and then also the responses back to say what are all the like sliders you can change, like from hate perspective, insults, sexual violence, misconduct, and prompt attacks. Prompt attacks is basically like, trying to avoid or prevent any, hacking or prompt ingestion perspective. But the other factors are basically trying to limit the user prompts and also to basically filter the content before the LLM responds back, or the user interface that is basically Azure AI Studio responds back with the to the user, to the end user with a response, and it kind of like tries to add another filter or another check. So it doesn't rely only on LLM's raw response, but it kind of checks the response after the fact based on the sliders we choose to see if the response is aligning with the sliders that we have chosen. And this is from AWS Bedrock Studio. So this tuner can be used for guardrails. They call it guardrails tuning. This could be used for Claude and a Llama open source model. And similar setup is available for Azure as well. That is to tune the GPT-4o, which is kind of like the similar concept, violence, hate, sexual, self-harm, and other stuff, where you can also kind of like shield the prompts for jailbreaks and indirect attacks and such. So this is another feature that's good for us when we are setting this up for the end users who are going to be interacting with the data sets. Finally, about the response accuracy. So when we accessed Llama 3.2 using AWS Bedrock Studio with the same data set we had provided, it came back with an inaccurate response for the number of ads in the data set. That's a very simple question. And it's also kind of slower than Claude models. So you can see that it's about 11,000 milliseconds. Claude was quicker, but then it was again it was not accurate in terms of the number of ads in the data set. It came back with less than the actual value that is in the original data set. But OpenAI was, like we saw before, it was accurate. So it was like it brought back the right number of advertisements in this data set. So that kind of made us come to a conclusion by comparing all the metrics. And finally, this table shows the comparison, side-by-side comparison of cloud-based implementations where the data privacy risk is low now because Azure owns a copy of the OpenAI LLM, and now you can the data doesn't go out. Similarly with Claude, it does not AWS doesn't send out the data to Anthropic. And Llama, we know that it's self-hosted and we own the copy of the model, so the data isn't going out. Multi-user collaboration, that's available because now we are using the cloud infrastructure to set up an interface at the beginning, and it kind of like creates the cloud environment, takes care of the multi-user, multi-threading of this conversational between the users. And customizability, we saw that guardrails tuning is available now, and advanced compliance and security. This is another key factor. Now we are using cloud infrastructure, which is inherently for Azure and AWS, it is inherently compliant with SOC2, HIPAA, and FERPA standards. So that are all being, included within this infrastructure by default. Llama again, because if we use AWS for Llama, then it is built in. Cost effectiveness, now that we are actually using the LLM as a consumption-based one pricing instead of per user per month, then it becomes really economical for the users. And from a accuracy perspective, we saw that GPT-4o performed well or like accurately. So that's the only key metric that kind of like stands out, makes GPT-4o stand out from the others. So that's the reason we had to choose Azure OpenAI GPT-4 because of its accuracy and ethical sensitivity and privacy and scalability in cloud environment and also customizability.
Thank you, Rajesh. We're going to have to wrap up. So,
okay, sure.
Is this your last slide?
Yes, that's my last slide. So basically, our future work would be to work. So we did see that. So basically, we want to work with the community to enhance the chatbot interface using the OpenAI GPT. So we wanted to get feedback from the communities. That we'll be working with a group of folks at Kenneth Center to like have them review this and provide feedback so we can evaluate the feedback and also refine the product. So that's our future work.